Eric Bischoff here again, telling you about our friends over at SaveWithConrad.com. Now, Conrad's always talking about how they are helping homeowners save money, but did you know that Conrad and his team can also help you become a homeowner? They make the home buying process more enjoyable than, I don't know, making out with Stephanie and Linda. Ouch! But don't take my word for it.
Hi, I'm Sarah Davis, and I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. So my husband has been a huge fan of Conrad's podcast for many, many years. And for years, we were on road trips, and he would have me listen to it. And then I got really into it. And so when it came time for us to buy a house, it was kind of like, there's really no other option at this point. Like, we have to go down this path, right? It was the best. I worked with Steve. I don't know what to do. I was looking more for preparing to buy a house. How do I get this in order? What does this need to look like? What do I need to move around? What's more important that I pay off first? Because I'm a first-time home buyer. I don't know what that needs to look like. So that's when I called you guys and I talked with Steve, and phenomenal from day one. I got a full education on home buying before I was ever asked to fill out an application, before I was ever asked to do anything, which is just, I cannot brag on you guys enough. I literally cannot tell enough people about you, because we would not have a home if it weren't for you, if it weren't for that interaction and weren't for the learning process. And I feel like I went into being a first-time home buyer by the time we got through the end of the process with the same education that people need 4 or 5 homes to buy. And so now I feel like, all right, well, we can do this. We can do real estate. I can actually make good decisions and ask good questions at closing and beyond because of everything that you taught me. My name is Sarah Davis, and I got into my dream home with Save with Conrad.
And unlike the dirt sheets, we're not making this up. Check out all the 5-star reviews. Go to SaveWithConrad.com and do it today. You'll be grateful you did.
NMLS number 65084, equal housing lender. Woo!
This is 83 Weeks with Eric Bischoff. I'm Jon Alba, filling in for Conrad Thompson this week, and we are talking all things AEW, all in the premier event held at Wembley Stadium in London this past weekend. Eric Bischoff had a chance to watch it, and we are going to talk about it. Eric Bischoff, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. We got a lot to cover, and I know you've got a heart out today. First of all, apologies for everybody, although I love doing a show with you, John, and I'm sure it'll be entertaining as all hell. Conrad had a sudden engagement, not able to be here, and I didn't get home until late yesterday, and I recorded the pay-per-view, or at least thought I did, on DirecTV, and lo and behold, I got up this morning at 4 o'clock in the morning to watch the show so Conrad and I could cut it, and guess what? It wasn't there. So after messing around for a couple hours, I finally got it on Bleacher Report, watched all 4 hours of it, nearly 4 hours, and here I am. Reached out to Conrad, said, hey, buddy, and he goes, man, can't do it. So John flew in, jumped out of a plane with his parachute, landed in Conrad's seat, and here we go. Let's do it.
Yes, you can check out Eric and I every single week on Strictly Business right here on the Ad Free Shows and Podcast Heat Network, where we talk about the business of the business, and we'll talk about some of the stuff that was associated with this all-in pay-per-view on that show. But today, we are talking about the nuts and bolts of that card. Now, Eric, there were 2 pre-show matches on this event. You did not get a chance to see those live due to all the chaos of your recording. But the first one, as we've discussed in the past, had a pretty significant importance to the storytelling of the main event, and that was MJF and Adam Cole defeating Aussie Open Kyle Fletcher and Mark Davis in 7 minutes 45 seconds to win the Ring of Honor World Tag Team Championship. So the biggest thing about that, Eric, was for weeks they had been building up this story beat that MJF was going to hit Aussie Open with something he was calling the kangaroo kick, which they kept teasing and teasing on TV for weeks, and eventually he hit it in this match. The crowd went absolutely nuts, and then they hit a double clothesline, their finisher, as the crowd went crazy to see them win the Ring of Honor World Tag Team Championship. So as these 2 main eventers were getting ready to face each other later in the night, they were successful together, leading to an interesting development later on in the main event angle. What do you think about putting that on the pre-show and having that story beat before the main event?
My initial reaction, as anybody that listens to either 83 Weeks or Strictly Business says, I thought it was a stupid idea. I didn't get it. But as I've often said, you got to wait and see. And it doesn't bother me. Look, do I think it really added value to the main event? I really don't. Do I think it hurt the main event? No, I don't. So I think it was on paper probably a good idea. In execution, I think it was a neutral move. It wasn't good, wasn't bad. It was just there. So no harm, no foul, man. I'm not taking any points away for it.
When we get into the main event, I'll tell you why I think there was some equity in doing this after all, because they did utilize those belts as a vehicle to build a little character
I
development.
thought you were going to wait
MJF
until
and
the
Adam
end.
Cole.
You're giving me your finish. You're starting the match out with a finish.
Well, we will get into that there. After that, we got Hook defeating Jack Perry via submission to regain the FTW championship. This one went all around the stage area. There was a comment made about glass by Jack Perry that would lead to an eventual altercation with CM Punk. But Hook getting a chance to shine a little bit here on a big stage. Eric, he's so young. We know he's the son of Taz. He's only been in the industry for a couple of years. What does exposure on a stage like this do for a talent at that level?
Exposure, I don't think really matters too much. The experience to go out there and perform on that big of a crowd, with that big of a crowd, I think can provide a tremendous amount of valuable experience and confidence. Invaluable in that respect. But in terms of, the exposure and all that, it's, maybe it doesn't hurt, right? Don't take any points away for it, but it's not going to make any real difference, except for just the added value of the experience and the confidence that comes with it.
Yeah, I guess I meant more even so exposure for him, exposing him to that crowd, to that audience, to a big stage where all eyes are on you. And as we heard, more than 81,000 paid for this show, making it the highest paid attendance for a pro wrestling event ever, which, if true, is a remarkable accomplishment in and of itself. That got us to the main card, Eric. And we started with a match that I'm not sure people thought would begin this show off. That was CM Punk defeating Samoa Joe via pinfall with the Pepsi Plunge. This was a singles match in which CM Punk retained his real world championship. They went 14 minutes here. Technically, Eric, I thought this was a really sound pro wrestling match that was a nice way to tie their story that spanned multiple decades together. But an interesting, unique way to start a show where I think a lot of people may have expected something a little more high energy. What was your impression on that?
Look, it was a solid match. No negatives, right? I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be as honest as I can possibly be, because obviously I have some biases and I have a certain perspective based on what I like, and it's all subjective. It's just my opinion. So I'm going to try to keep things as positive as I can. I thought the match was slow paced. It didn't have a lot of energy. I thought Punk started looking gassed after about 2 minutes in. And I don't think he was, by the way. I just think he was selling like he had run a marathon 2 hours before he decided to wrestle Joe. And it's just the pace of it, I thought, was surprisingly slow. Now, I will admit, part of that is because I think my expectations were a little out of whack. I've never really seen the Punk Joe history. I understand they've had some really, really good matches in the past. I'm a huge fan of Samoa Joe as a human being and as a character. So I was really, I was excited, and I wanted to put it over, and I am. It was solid. It was good. It just caught me a little bit. I just thought it was a little awkward to start a show with something this slow a pace. I was also not surprised, but disappointed to see that much blood early on in the show, when I kind of expected this thing was going to be a, hemoglobin fest, and it certainly was. And I think starting off the show with that much blood, when that much more is coming, at some point it doesn't matter anymore. Yeah. And I think we're getting, precariously close to that point.
Yeah, you and I haven't talked about any of this show at all together, so I thought that was really interesting that you shared the same sentiment that I did, that while it was a very good match, and I really did think it was a very good match, the pacing out of the gate for a show that is typically, when you think of AEW, right, you think of high energy, you think of the acrobatics, you think of the trios matches, bam, 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 bam. And in front of 81,000 people, you've got a chance to create a pretty instant, memorable impression. And having a match that was much more your traditional pro wrestling match, it almost seemed not quite as linear with AEW's brand message that they've established over the past few years.
Yeah, and again, some of my notes is, obviously I just said slow pace, that, the blood I've already covered. The match seemed to have one gear. There was like one speed from the minute the bell went off to the minute the match was over. There was like one gear, and I guess that's the part that left me a little bit surprised and slightly disappointed. But again, that's perhaps because my expectations were so high.
Mhm.
But yeah, those are my notes for that match.
Yeah, CM Punk's first stadium show in more than 10 years. And the last one was WrestleMania 29 off the top of my head, I'm pretty sure, where he faced
by
The
the-
Undertaker.
By the way, I kind of rated these each match.
Ooh, are we getting Eric Bischoff star ratings?
No. I rate everything from 1 to 10 based on a completely 100% ridiculous subjective opinion. It's just what I like. Doesn't mean it matters, but just in terms of what I enjoy and what I appreciate, respect out of a presentation, I kind of went from 1 to 10, and I gave this one a 6. Was it good? Wasn't bad. It was just solid.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, listen, I think it was very much solid, and pacing was just the weird disconnect for me as a star match. I think if this was in a different position, I might have felt a little differently about it, but instead it was the starter, which then got us to the more traditional AEW match. Bullet Club Gold, which was Juice Robinson, Jay White, and Konosuke Takeshita, with Don Callis and the Guns in their corner, defeated the Golden Elite, Kenny Omega, Kota Ibushi, and Hangman Adam Page. And Eric, the big story beat here was that Takeshita, who has aligned with Don Callis and has been feuding with Kenny Omega here, got a clean pin on Kenny Omega. He rolled him up from behind after Kenny Omega was running wild. And that sets up a one-on-one bout for them next week in Chicago, the biggest match of Konosuke Takeshita's career. I would imagine you probably haven't seen a whole bunch of Takeshita to this point, but I would love to hear your thoughts on Bullet Club Gold and what those guys brought to the table in this match.
I obviously Kenny Omega is so impressive to watch as an athlete and as a performer. So that was fun. The match I thought was decent. I gave it a 6.5. What kept me from giving it more than that? The elbow fest just takes me out of it. I get it. I understand it. The history, the connection, especially with Japanese, hardcore wrestling and strong style wrestling. I get it. It's not like I don't understand it. It's just that I don't dig it. A couple times here and there, yeah. But this, God, if I saw it once, I saw it 500 times on this pay-per-view, and it just took me out of it. They weren't done that well, to see guys standing there, no selling, elbows to the face. You can do that. And I'm sure there's a percentage of the audience that goes, wow, do you believe those guys are working so hard? They're so tough. But it also takes me out of anything else that I want to believe in. The ability to suspend my disbelief and just get sucked into the drama of what I'm seeing is mitigated substantially when I see guys just doing stupid shit for so long. Again, coupled here and there or for a spot in the match, but this was it was like an elbow marathon. And had it not been for that, I probably would have been more excited about it. I think obviously Kenny Omega stood out. Don't have much more to, let me see if I have any more. Oh, the surprise finish. I like the finish. There was a finish that kind of caught me, and there weren't many good finishes. I'm going to talk a lot about that throughout this. This show had WCW disease, meaning a lot of solid action, and in some cases great action. And with the exception of one or two matches, the finishes and just about everything I saw
Yeah.
felt like a means to an end instead of a journey and a great finish to a great movie. It was just kind of, okay, we got to end this thing somehow. What do you want to do? What do you want to do? What do you want to do? Hey, what do you want to do? Let's do that. Very little thought giving to the finish, with the exception of one match in particular. And we'll talk about that.
Something about hearing you say WCW disease pop.
No, listen, I'm honest about this shit. I criticize myself as much as anybody else criticizes me, really, and some of my mistakes and some of the things I've done in the past. And that's probably why sometimes I get overly passionate when I see things that are so obvious to me, which people should have been able to learn from some of the mistakes that I did make in WCW or I allowed to happen in WCW, yet they're being repeated now. And it's like, dude, Tony, and I'm not being negative on Tony in this show. Congratulations to Tony Khan. Actually, apologize. I want to apologize publicly to Tony. I was a little hard on him when we did Strictly Business, when it came to how he's handling certain things in AEW, and I think I was a little too hard. It's just my emotion because of passion. I really want to see it work. But, Tony came out and said a while back, and it's probably one of the things that started setting this thing off was between he and I was, I don't want to make the same mistakes WCW made. Well, dude, you are. And not only are you making the same mistakes that Eric Bischoff made and WCW made, but they're on steroids, and they're actually worse than some of the mistakes I made, or the same mistakes, but with greater impact. So I apologize for being as verbose and as rough as I was on Tony, but it's really only because of passion. I want to see him succeed. I think Tony is a wonderful human being. I think he's a very smart guy. I just think in certain aspects he's in over his head. Enough of that. Move on.
Regarding this match, was there anyone outside of Kenny Omega that caught your attention?
I mean, everybody in the match was good. There was nobody. I'm not overly enamored with Takeshita or whatever his name is. It's just, it was okay. I didn't feel like, oh my gosh, I got to see more of this guy. It was just like, okay, yeah, you're one of many Japanese wrestlers that look really good in the ring.
Were you surprised that Kenny Omega did not have a singles match on this mega card?
I really am, and that's kind of an overall, feeling. And I didn't make any overall notes, but what was there? 10 matches? How many did I actually wrote them down? Each one of them. There were 9 matches, and all but 2 or 3 of them were like some kind of trios or tag team or 6-mans or whatever the fuck. Yeah, I think that hurt as well. When you don't have story, you put on a spectacle, and this was a spectacle. You had 81,000 plus fans. It was a beautiful venue. There were some great production shots, not as many as I thought I'd see. I didn't think they put the event over quite as much as I think they could have or should have, but that's probably being slightly overcritical, or maybe too overcritical. But the lack of individual matches and the drama that usually comes with it, because there's a story, there's psychology in a match. Even if there isn't a backstory leading into the match itself can have story, which is fine. I was pretty supportive of Tony and AEW going into not having a lot of build up going into the match or the event. And I still am, but I think the takeaway would have been better had there been more singles matches that had great psychology in the ring. We didn't see that. What we saw was a lot of gimmick matches, and every match was almost like everything but the main event, I think, was a gimmick match of some kind, and maybe this match. Just too much, just too indie, just too indie-rific. Even though it was in front of 80,000 people, it was just too indie-rific for me.
But isn't that what AEW has built a lot of its brand on? Like, people, when they buy this show, they buy a ticket to the show, they know what they're getting with the AEW product.
Well, they know what they're getting with it every week on TV, which is why the audience isn't growing. They're catering to a small internet-based audience. Now, the obvious response to that is, yeah, but it was 81,000 people. It was the most attended event. Yes, all that is true. But I don't think that that was necessarily because of anything other than there was a major curiosity factor. AEW had never been there before. There were a lot of former WWE talent on that card that people hadn't seen in a long time. People wanted to be a part of this big event and this moment in history. And I said in the weeks leading up to this, I've said it many times on Strictly Business, the star of this show will be the 80,000 people in attendance. And that was absolutely the fact. That was the star of the show, with one or two exceptions. It was the audience in the venue. I don't know if it's sustainable, and I could be wrong. Just because I like certain styles of matches, there are certain matches on this card that I really, really enjoyed a lot. We haven't gotten to them yet. They were all good matches so far. I mean, in fact, I didn't see a match that I thought, well, that was a lousy match. They were all good. They were all solid, with the exception of one or two that weren't beyond that. But I don't know that the ECW homage and the super hardcore bloodbath spectacle matches it's sustainable. Maybe it is, and that's something that we'll see over time. I'm not one of those guys that believe that you got to go back to doing it the way it was in the 60s or the 70s or the 80s or the 90s or 2000s. I understand audiences evolve, tastes evolve. It's true in music, it's true in movies, it's true in every aspect of entertainment and culture. And I'm not hanging on to the past, but there has to be certain fundamentals when it comes to entertainment and I think wrestling too, that while you can add a lot of athleticism, do a lot of things that never used to be done before, there's still some kind of fundamentals that you got to stick with.
Sure.
And I saw glimpses of it. Actually, we'll talk about the main event when the main event comes, but that was an example of an amazing, it was a great story, great match, and I'll talk about the rest of it in a minute, but I just don't know that it's sustainable. I think once you've seen it, you've seen it.
Interesting. Well, I'm excited to talk about the main event with you in a little bit here. I do want to ask you about the production of the show, because that was something we did talk at length about on Strictly Business and what we could be expecting from that. Did you approve of the general production of it and the stage setup?
Whether I approve of it or not,
No, did it fit Eric Bischoff's taste?
Yeah. I mean, I think the shots. Look, there were no mistakes. First and foremost, it's kind of like practicing medicine. First of all, do no harm. Hippocratic oath. I think that's what that's called.
Yeah.
Do no harm. So there was no harm done. I think there could have been more in the way of really great packages, because packages add so much. It just changes the complexion of an event and can make it feel so much more significant than it already is. And clearly with 81,000 plus people, it was significant. No question about that. I'm not trying to take anything away from it, but I think there could have been things done from a production perspective to make it even bigger than it really was. I didn't see that. I thought this is production only, but I thought the packages were okay, what I would expect to see in a weekly TV show, but I didn't get any of that really dramatic, supportive kind of added value packages. They were more maintenance opportunities. Check that box. We need a promo before. Let's hear from these two guys. Okay, good. We've done that. Let's move on to the next one. Nothing really moved me the way it should for an event this big.
Yeah, they produced a lot of really good ones, and they were all aired on online in the pre-show. I think you got to save a few of those for TV to.
Well, really... and I think, John, not to interrupt you, but I know you're in a hurry too. And I think part of that is because they were trying to cram, 10 pounds of matches into an 8-pound bag. And, the talent wants time. That's historically, that's always been an issue when it comes to talent and timing a show. Is every one of these performers are pros that want to be able to go out there and do the best job they can, and they don't want to rush through anything, and they want to try to tell their story in the best way possible. And as such, as a producer, you're going to give them as much time as you can. But I think it can be a mistake to add minutes to matches and then not have room for the packages that can add so much overall to the end product. We're going to get back to talking about All In just a few minutes. But speaking of All In, if I'm going to go all in on anything, it's great sex. Yep, ladies and gentlemen, even at this advanced stage of my life, I dig me a good time, and it's all about performance. Blue Chew has been an advertiser, a sponsor here on 83 Weeks for a long time, and I've been a customer ever since. It's got the same active ingredients as Viagra, Cialis, and Levitra, but in chewable tablets, and Conrad loves this part, for a fraction of the cost. You can take them anytime, day or night. Just plan a little bit ahead. For me, 15, 20 minutes works like a dream, and the process is simple. Sign up at bluechew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, receive your prescription within a matter of days. The best part, and it's all done online. You don't have to go to the doctor. You don't have any awkward conversations. No waiting in line at the pharmacy, because we all know how much fun that is, right? It sucks. Blue Chew's tablets are made in the USA and prepared and shipped direct to your door in a discreet package. Does it work? Don't you think you need it? Well, I don't know. Try it for a month and see. You're going to love it. Mrs. B and I do. You could be missing out on some of the best sex in your life. With Blue Chew, men everywhere are excited to see the postman, because when the postman shows up, your package has arrived, and your package has really arrived, right? They always say first impressions are important, but what about lasting impressions? Say there's nothing sexier than confidence, and Blue Chew gives you the performance boost you need to have all the confidence in the world. Blue Chew wants to help you have better sex. Discover your options at bluechew.com. Chew it and do it, and we've got a special deal for our listeners. Try Blue Chew free when you use our promo code 83weeks at checkout. Just pay $5 in shipping. What did I just say? I said just pay $5 in shipping. That's it. That's bluechew.com, promo code 83weeks to receive your first month free. Visit bluechew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring our podcast. One of the things I love about doing a podcast with Conrad is his passion for Henson Shaving. You'd think he owns the company himself. He is so passionate about this product. And yes, the man has a beard, but you still have to trim that thing, right? And the precision, the quality of the product, and more importantly, the cost or lack thereof is one of the things that I know Conrad is most excited about when it comes to Henson Shaving. See, Henson Shaving is a family-owned aerospace parts manufacturer that has made parts for the International Space Station, Mars rover, and now they're bringing the precision, the experience, and the engineering to your shaving experience. Razor blades are like diving. The longer the board, the more wobble. The more wobble, the more nicks. The more nicks, the more scrapes. The more scrapes, the more cuts. It's just a vicious, bloody circle. No pun intended. A bad shave isn't a blade problem. It's an extension problem. By using aerospace-grade CNC machines, Henson makes metal razors that extend just 0.0013 inches. Like, I couldn't even measure that with my fingers, right? It's like, I don't know, less than the thickness of a hair, which is kind of what makes it work. It's secure, it's a stable blade, and it's vibration free. It gets better. The razor has built-in channels to evacuate air and cream, which makes clogging virtually impossible. Seriously, Henson Shaving wants the best razor. Not the best razor business, the best razor. There's a big difference. That means no plastic, no subscriptions, no proprietary blades, and no planned obsolescence. The Henson razor works with all standard dual-edge blades, and it gives you that old-school shave with the benefits of new-school tech. Once you own a Henson razor, it's only, you're not going to believe this, but it's true, $3 to $5 a year to replace blades. Now, if you've been to a drugstore, supermarket, and you've had to go get somebody to unlock the case where they lock up all the blades because they're so damn expensive. And these things show up at your door. It's $3 to $5 per year. Now, when I first tried it, I looked at that razor, put it together, and I thought, first thing I thought of was my dad. This is the kind of razor my dad did. It's got that old school kind of vibe to it. But the design, the durability, the affordability, the technology is unbelievable. Trust me, you cannot go wrong with Henson Shaving. It's time to say no to subscriptions and yes to a razor that's going to last you a lifetime. Visit hensonshaving.com/83 weeks to pick the razor for you and use the code 83 weeks and you'll get two years worth of blades free with your razor. Just to make sure you add them, or just make sure you add them to your cart. That's 100 free blades when you head to hensonshaving.com. That's hensonshaving.com/83 weeks and use the code 83 weeks.
Sure. Let's keep moving here then, Eric. We had FTR defeating the Young Bucks in match 3 of their series to retain the AEW World Tag Team Championship. Cash Wheeler was the one who ended up picking up the pinfall for FTR in this bout. I felt like if you've been paying attention to the story of these 3 teams and the other 2 matches they've had, this was full of callbacks to those 2 matches. Very much a Young Bucks style match in that sense. In a vacuum, I'm not sure it met the same drama as their other 2, but I still thought it was very, very good. What were your thoughts on this match?
First of all, in my opinion, rematches aren't stories. You know, when I hear people say, yeah, but these guys have history together, that's just because they've had matches together. That's not a story. It's just not. I don't know if there was a story leading into this.
Clearly, I think the story was, who's the greatest tag team of all time? Is it FTR or the Young Bucks?
That's not a story. That's a question. There you go. That's part of my issue with a lot of the AEW audiences. Go, yeah, but they got such a great story. Actually, no, they fucking don't. A story is an arc. It's got a beginning, it's got a middle, and it's got an end. It escalates along the way. It gets more dramatic. There are plot points or plot twists in the middle of that arc that really suck you in and elevate the stakes if there are any. This is a question: who's the best tag team? I get it, but that's not a story, in my opinion. That's just an excuse to have a match, and there's a big difference. Look, the match itself, I was entertained. You know, I like FTR. I enjoy watching them. They have a style of wrestling, a presentation that I subjectively I enjoy more than some of the more acrobatic, gymnastic, floor exercise type matches. Not some people love that. A lot of people do. Maybe 81,000 people love that shit. So my opinion isn't really worth a nickel at this point, but it's mine and I own it. I thought the match was solid. My only note, and this is kind of a shitty note, but I'm watching and I'm seeing guys going in and out of the ring, and I'm seeing a referee that's just standing there watching all this traffic going by. It's like he's a traffic cop that doesn't know how to direct traffic. Why do they call it a tag team match? Why not just call it a 4-way match with no DQs? Because there's no rhyme. You know, sometimes there was tags. A lot of times there weren't. Referees standing there, not counting, just looking. It's like, I don't know. There's got to be, in my opinion, for whatever it's worth, there's got to be some structure that allows people to follow along and understand when you're doing something you're not supposed to be doing. And I just saw a lot of great action, and I'm looking at the ref going, why is this called a tag team match? Because there's hardly any tags. Sometimes there are, a lot of times there aren't. It's weird, whatever. But I was entertained, and I thought Bucks did a great job. The finish at the end when they're both going for their finish and they bang both their knees or whatever the hell that was. I get it. It kind of let the air out of my tires a little bit going into the finish. It just didn't visually. It didn't make me go, whoa, wow, that must have hurt. It was just, I don't know, awkward, I guess.
Each of these teams hit each other's finishers in this. Again, there was a lot of callbacks to their other two matches. So if you've been following their history, you might have picked up on those. That's kind of one of the fibers of a lot of the Young Bucks matches. They do a lot of callbacks to other things that have happened in canon. But if you watched it in a vacuum, I did think this was still pretty good, all things considered. I did have higher expectations for it, though, Eric. I think both of these teams have had better tag team matches this year than this one. You mentioned Rick Knox, the referee, kind of allowing a lot of things to happen. He is the Young Bucks referee. That's almost the gimmick at this point of what happens in their bouts. So how many Eric Bischoff stars out of 10 are you giving this one?
That one, I gave it a 6.5. You know,
Okay.
I thought the action was it was better than solid. It was better than good. And again, it's my kind of match, you know, with FTR. But again, I think the Bucks did a great job, and it all gelled together until the end. I thought it was a little clunky.
Yeah.
So I gave that one a 6.5.
No, you're a big music guy. There were a lot of homages to Freddie Mercury on this show. The Young Bucks came out in the Freddie Mercury jackets. Saraya came out to We Will Rock You. Chris Jericho did the Live Aid stuff, the homage to Freddie Mercury that we saw from him. Any thoughts on the presentation in that sense? Homages to the British music history, perhaps?
No, I think it was a classy, smart thing to do. It gave the event its identity. It was a tip of the cap to the UK and in the music industry there in the UK that's had so much influence all over the world, especially here in the US. So I thought it was cool. I'll talk more about Jericho's thing in a minute when we get to that match, but yeah, I thought it was pretty cool.
Well, I got a feeling you're going to give us some mixed opinions on this next one. This was the Stadium Stampede match, AEW's third ever Stadium Stampede match. But this one very different. This one much more similar to the Anarchy in the arena matches they've done in the past. Eddie Kingston, Penta, Best Friends, and Orange Cassidy defeated the Blackpool Combat Club, Santana, and Ortiz here. They told a big story at the end with Orange Cassidy with the glass in the hand, and they're setting up for a potential bout with him and Jon Moxley to come at AEW All Out next week. He's got a match with Penta first, a number one contenders match, essentially, to face Jon Moxley. This was all over the place, man. Literally, it took place all over Wembley Stadium. Very hard to follow, but if you're into brutality, they definitely gave it to you here. How'd you feel about it?
These guys probably sit at home and pull the wings off flies in their spare time. You know, I just, again, not my taste, not my style. I don't get it. It's just, I don't want to be negative, any more negative than I guess I'm already coming off, but I have to be honest. It's just another example of, you know, indie-rific on steroids. It absolutely does nothing for me. Nothing for me. Zero. Actually, it does do something for me. It turns me completely off. It's not artistic. It's not creative. It's not athletic. It's just gore for the sake of gore. And hey, I don't go to horror movies either. And a lot of people do. So if that's your thing, then you're really, really excited about this match and this pay-per-view because there's a lot of it. And like I said, that's your thing. You left home. You were glad you spent that $50, or you're glad you bought that ticket and showed up live because you got your nut. If this is your thing. The other thing I really, again, production, and I've made this mistake. Sometimes I think I invented it, although not really. But you're in Wembley. First of all, Claudio, one of the best performers in the card, without question, most capable, with the exception of maybe one or two people we'll talk about in a few minutes. But to have him out there brawling is a complete waste of talent. But I get it. You know, you've got a lot of people involved. You can only put so many people in the ring. It's kind of like painting yourself in the corner. You book this match, and I'm going, now how do we actually execute it? Well, let's have these guys wrestle off in, you know, a different part of the arena. You're taking them out. You know, the people at home see it. I guess if you're watching and there's a monitor, you know, a Tron or of some sort, you can possibly catch up to it. But it's just not great. It very rarely, if ever, works. looks good on paper, but the execution is sloppy. And it's just hard to create emotion. Again, great spectacle, no emotion, just a spectacle for the sake of a spectacle. So I was pretty disappointed. I gave it a 5.5. Everybody worked their asses off.
Yeah.
Not taking anything away from effort, but I think I just think it was too much.
Jon Moxley was one of those guys that I felt like really carried AEW last year. And he was very much in the same boat as Kenny Omega for me, where I would have expected him to be in a singles match on this card. And not to say that a match like this isn't his forte, it certainly falls in line with what he likes to do sometimes. But he very much
John,
he strikes me as kind of that Mick Foley hybrid, where Mick Foley loved a good hardcore match, but he could go out there and he could really tell a great story in a standard singles match too. And I feel like Jon Moxley is very much cut from that same cloth. Do you have any thoughts on him in that regard?
No, I agree with you. When Moxley stepped up, when was it? When Punk had his initial big issue,
yeah,
right? And Moxley stepped it. I was like, I turned into a huge Moxley fan because that's a pro. That's somebody who's invested and who cares and who's a pro and has the balls to step up and fill a spot that wasn't his initially. Really respected him for that. Still do. But I think he sells himself short with his tendency to want to do this kind of extreme bloodfest. It's not as impressive to the audience as it is to perhaps Jon himself or that segment of the audience that really gets off on that stuff. I mean, a little bit of that goes a long way, and I've just seen too much of it, especially on this card. There was just so much of it.
Personally, I think instead of shaving your head the next bet you lose, we should bet whether or not you have skewers placed into your scalp.
Yeah, that'll never happen. I did get acupuncture a couple times, though.
Okay.
I'm a big fan of acupuncture.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, just even the visual of that, man.
Perhaps a fork to the face. Does that appeal to you?
Well, how many? Fuck! It looked like we were in a Bonanza Steakhouse. There were so many forks, blood everywhere, guys getting forked up all over the place. It was just so much. That's the part of the AEW presentation that I think is becoming so self-limiting. The domestic audience is flatter than flat. In fact, it's not even flat. If you look at it, it's deteriorating, incrementally, but deteriorating each and every week. Go to Brandon Thurston's, any of his reports when he posts ratings, so you can just look at it. It's right there in black and white and red and yellow and blue and orange and pink and purple, whatever, because he tracks so much stuff. But it's easy to track. I make light of it, but it's just not working in terms of growing the audience. And I know the comebacks, yeah, but David Zassoff's happy and he told my dad that we're doing great and blah, blah, blah. And we're getting this, we're getting that. So I get it, but the numbers don't lie. The audience isn't growing. And you can say, if you're Dave Meltzer and you're trying to make an excuse for your buddies who are executive vice presidents, yeah, but the cable audience is deteriorating. True. WWE's audience aren't deteriorating. They're growing. AEW's aren't. Got to be a reason why. Got to be analytical about this stuff beyond just being a great numbers cruncher. You got to look at those numbers and interpret what they mean. And what I'm seeing is a dependence upon a gratuitous amount of blood and excessive violence without any real story or character development, in my opinion, and a deterioration of ratings. Whereas you look at WWE and you look at the emphasis on story and athleticism and all the other things, and their numbers are incrementally increasing, where AEW's are incrementally decreasing. If I would at least ask myself why, if I was in charge in AEW or worked there, I would want to have a pretty good idea why. And I think the overdependence on this kind of gratuitous, blood and just gore and forks to the forehead and skewers to the forehead. We won't even come up with necks. At some point, you're gonna have to cut. At some point, you're gonna have to bite the head off of a chicken in order to get anybody's attention. I don't know.
Maybe so. Let's keep rolling here.
Ozzy Osbourne did it. Worked for him, man.
Took a bat's head and took a nice bite out of it. We got Saraya defeating Tony Storm, Hikaru Shida, and Dr. Britt Baker DMD via pinfall in a four-way for the AW Women's World Championship. Shida entered this one as the champion. Short title reign for her, just a couple weeks. Saraya gets the home country win here. Her family, part of the presentation. She comes out to We Will Rock You. Some dissension amongst the ranks within the outcast of Tony Storm, Ruby Soho, and Saraya. And Saraya is the one here, Eric, just a couple years now after getting cleared from her neck injury and missing so many years of action of her prime in WWE. Here she is picking up a pinfall and winning the AEW Women's Championship. What are your thoughts on this one?
A couple notes. I'll just get to my notes. It'll refresh my memory because I'm literally walking in my sleep. I got up at 3:30 this morning to watch a pay-per-view that I couldn't watch until about 9. What did I think of this? Where to go? Women's match. I thought Britt Baker looked believable and exceptionally vicious. A lot of her stuff was tight and it was vicious. I liked it. I like a vicious dentist. Next time I'm in Pittsburgh, I'm going to get my teeth cleaned, whether I need it or not, Britt. I enjoyed the match. I really was impressed with Tony Storm.
Yeah.
That's my takeaway. And largely because I just don't watch enough AEW to be familiar as I probably should be with a lot of their talent. But the minute she came out, I went, ooh, she gets it. She actually believes she's her character. And I liked her a lot. I know it's like probably not the most important thing in anybody else's mind, but she's one of the things that really stood out to me in the show. Yeah. She's got that, people talk about that it factor. What is it about some characters that the minute they walk through the curtain, you go, oh, that's a real one. That one there, that one right there. I like that one. She's got that.
Yeah.
Regardless of, her role in the match and the outcome of the match, I was impressed with her. I was impressed with Britt. I thought Britt did a great job. Yeah. Happy for Saraya. How do you not feel good about that moment? Family's there. She's in the UK where she's from, a lot of local fans, a lot of history, backstory. How do you not feel good about that? What did I give that match? I forgot to rate that match. Oh no, I gave it a 7.
Okay.
I gave it a 7 because it felt good at the end, And again, what I give these opinions from the perspective of a producer, not necessarily the perspective of a wrestling fan, which is probably why I disconnect a lot with the, internet wrestling geeks, because they're just looking at it from their fanboy perspective. I like this match, even though technically there were better matches and there's some things that were just whatever. It's all about creating emotion. And this match created emotion, not just for me, but for the audience. And a lot of it had to do with it, Saraya, and bringing out her family and all that. So it had a feel-good vibe to me, and I dug it.
Yeah, on the Tony Storm front, I think she's probably one of the most complete women's performers that AEW has on its roster, and definitely one that got away from WWE. And I think she elevates and brings a lot of equity to that women's division. This was the shortest match on the main card that we saw, the only female representation on this card that we saw, even though they do have a women's mid-card title in the TBS championship. That was not to be seen on this show. The Saraya win, Eric, it almost reminded me that this was like kind of the equivalent of a WrestleMania moment on a big show. Do you see the parallels there?
Yeah. I mean, I understand it. I understand why someone would take that position. This did not have a WrestleMania feel to me at all.
Okay.
WrestleMania feels like WrestleMania. Just like, I'm not going to make a comparison because it'll piss people off. WrestleMania, you're watching a WrestleMania. From the moment that show opens till the moment it closes, you're watching something special. This show was unique in the sense that it was in front of 80,000 people at Wembley, Stadium and all that. But what took place inside of that ring and what didn't take place in terms of the packages and the support and the drama that goes along with it, the entrances I thought were pretty good, but not what you'd expect for a stadium show. It just felt like a really, really good indie show on steroids. Hey, you. Yes, you. I'm talking to you. You need an extra boost to support your wellness goals and feel your best for the rest of the summer? Like, who wouldn't, right? Try Protein Plus meals with 30 grams of protein or more per serving. And you can round out your meal and replenish your snack supply with an assortment of 45 add-ons, even more, 45 plus, including breakfast items like our delicious apple cinnamon pancakes or bacon and cheddar egg bites. And get this one. This is going to be my favorite for sure. Potato, bacon, and egg breakfast skillet. I love me some good skillet. Or for an easy wellness boost, just try a refreshing beverage option like, I don't know, cold pressed juices, shakes, smoothies. You pick it. It's up to you. With Factor, you can rest assured you're making a sustainable choice. We offset 100% of our delivery emissions and source 100% renewable electricity for our production sites and offices and feature sustainably sourced seafood in our meals. This August, get Factor and enjoy eating well without the hassle. Simply choose your meals and enjoy fresh, flavor-packed meals delivered to your door. Ready to eat? Just 2 minutes. No prep, no muss. And believe me, they have a lot of options. I chose the keto option because I've been on the keto diet for a long time. Don't love me, no carbs. Carbs don't love me either. So we came to this mutually exclusive relationship. I don't do me no carbs. I do love keto, and you can get great keto options with Factor. Delicious too. And like I said, they're fast, they're easy, no prep. When you're in a hurry, it's a great solution, and you can stay healthy without eating fast food. Head to factormeals.com/83weeks50 and use code 83weeks50 to get 50% off. That's code 83weeks50 at factormeals.com/83weeks50 to get 50% off. All right, we're going to get back to All In with my co-host for this week's podcast, Jon Alba, in just a minute. But before we continue any further, I want to talk Z-Biotics. Pre-alcohol probiotic, it's the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. Now, it was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. What a great idea that was, right? Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's the byproduct, not dehydration, which is what everybody thinks. That's to blame for your rough next day. Z-Biotics produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. It's designed to work like your liver, but in your gut where you need it the most. Drink Z-Biotics before drinking in the evening. Drink responsible and enjoy the night with confidence. You're going to wake up the next morning feeling great. First time I drank it, I was a little cynical, not going to lie. I was shocked. Had a pretty hard night, had a lot of fun, expected to feel like garbage the next morning. I woke up feeling great. It was pretty amazing. I enjoy the product. I believe in the product. I never leave home without it. And before August 28th, Labor Day weekend, it's right around the corner. So make sure you stock up before the long weekend. Friends and family will thank you. So before September 24th, this Halloween, pair your candy and cocktails with Z-Biotics to avoid a very, very spooky moment. Savor the moment. Let Z-Biotics do the rest. Go to zbiotics.com/83weeks. It's the letter Z, biotics.com/83weeks to get 15% off your first order when you use 83 weeks at checkout. Z-Biotics is backed with a 100%, that's right, 100% money back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/83weeks and use the code 83weeks at checkout for 15% off. Thanks, Z-Biotics, for sponsoring this episode.
Let's go to our next match here, which I'd imagine in some capacity had to make you smile. Darby Allin and Sting defeated Swerve Strickland and Christian Cage in a coffin match in 16 minutes. There was a pretty amazing entrance for this match, and that was Sting getting the Seek and Destroy treatment by Metallica. A nice little throwback there. Brutal match, just some vicious bumps. Sting, I felt, Eric, has had a few underwhelming performances in the past calendar year in AEW, but he was at his best here at 64 years old. He crushed it in this match. I thought Swerve Strickland really was someone who stood out to me. He gave so much to Sting. He gave so much to Darby. There's natural history between Christian and Sting, and Sting is the one that ends up shutting the coffin here on Swerve Strickland. What did you think of this match, the presentation of Sting, and everything that unfolded?
Oh, I thought it was pretty cool, obviously. And this is where my bias comes in, because I admit that I'm biased, unlike some people who pretend they're not or don't care if they are. I just didn't fucking admit it because I don't care. I am so impressed with Sting. Like, he's only 4 years younger than I am. And to go out there and do the things that he's doing. Is he the Sting from 1992 or 3 or 19 whatever, early 2000s? No, he's not. None of us are. But he's out there. He's still doing it. The audience loves him. So my bias and the fact that I think so much of Steve Borden and respect him so much probably weighs in here. Number one. Number two, I thought the Darby Allin stuff when he had his hands taped behind his back. I'm going, what the fuck? How does he do that? That's impressive. That's the most physically, not the most, one of the most physically, athletically impressive things that I saw throughout this pay-per-view. Not because it was that dynamic, but because it's so freaking difficult. How do you do that? I'm not even sure I could walk down the stairs backwards with my hands tied behind my back. More or less do some of the things that Darby Allin was doing. I thought it was crazy fun to watch that. I never seen anything like that. That got my attention pretty good. But I think the whole presentation was Sting, and I was just, maybe because I'm kind of, and I think this was true for me, for everybody that was on that card, no matter how I felt about their matches or not. I've never been in front of 80,000 people in the ring. So I can't say I know what that feels like, but I can imagine what that feels like, because I've been in front of 40,000 people, maybe more. I've been in front of 20,000 people, and I know what that feels like. I wrestled Stone Cold Steve Austin in No Way Out in Montreal. I know what that felt like. So at least I think I have a basis from which I can kind of imagine accurately what that must feel like. And I was living vicariously through every one of those people that came out through Gorilla. And I was so happy for them, genuinely happy for them, to be able to have that experience. And to see Sting have those moments, awesome. Just awesome. For me personally, because I'm biased, but I don't care. Because I can be. It doesn't fucking matter.
It's your podcast, man. I don't think this was the best match of the night, but I think it might have been the most fun match of the night. And they went out there and threw everything at the wall. I thought Swerve Strickland was so freaking great in this match.
Everybody in the match did a great job.
Yeah, I thought they really were. I saw Darby do that behind the back stuff on the Indies, I want to say 6-7 years ago. And to see him do it on that stage in front of 80,000 people blew my mind, that he had the confidence to go out there and do it in that fashion.
Oh, and by the way, do it flawlessly.
Mm-hmm.
Like flawlessly. I'm still in shock.
Do you think Sting has lent some equity to Darby?
Oh my God, are you kidding me? That's the beautiful thing. That's another thing that this is something that was almost subconscious, but you're bringing it up. that's what I love about Darby and Sting is lending. He's giving Darby the rub. It just is. But Darby's giving it right back. It's a mutually beneficial relationship where both talents are better because of each other. And I love that. That's magic when that happens.
It is. The Metallica entrance, Tony, once again, this happened a few times on this show, doing licensed music for the entrances. It really elevates it so much to that next level. And did you get the feels a little bit seeing Sting come out with that presentation?
It didn't register for me.
Yeah.
And maybe because I'm not really a Metallica fan and all that, but I thought it was great. Don't get me wrong. I'm not crapping on it. It didn't hit me maybe the same way that it hit others.
Sure. That's more than fair. What'd you give this one in terms of your rating?
Oh, what did I give this one? I give this one a 7. Again, it felt good. It was a great story in the ring. It made sense to me. Again, another gimmick match, which took it down a notch for me because it just won in a long line of overly done gimmick matches, which everybody knows how I feel about gimmick matches. They're just an excuse for not having a good story. But as far as gimmick matches go, I thought it was pretty well done.
Sure. This next match, I have no doubt that you loved. And I knew going into it, they'd overperform as to what many expectations were for this match, and I thought they delivered a hell of a match. Will Ospreay defeated Chris Jericho in a straight-up singles match. Chris Jericho sang his own entrance theme, Judas, with his band Fozzy, and Will Ospreay had a major superstar presentation in this. Will gets the win over Chris Jericho, and there's some tease of dissension between Chris and Sammy Guevara after the match. I thought Chris just threw everything at the wall that he could here, Eric, and looked awesome, keeping up with maybe the most physically gifted performer in all of wrestling today. What'd you think of this match?
Blown away. I'll disagree with you. I don't think Chris was able to keep up, but he did a fucking valiant effort trying to, and he was not that far behind. It was obvious. This was not Chris Jericho from, the late 90s.
No, relatively speaking, I mean.
This wasn't Chris Jericho WWE, right?
Sure.
How old is Chris? 54?
Chris is mid-50s. I'm pretty certain. I can confirm that momentarily.
Doesn't matter. Somewhere around there.
52.
52 years old.
52.
To be able to go out there and have that level of quality of match, especially with somebody like Will Ospreay, freaking mind-boggling to me. So much respect for Chris. So much respect. But I think what did get into my feels a bit was Chris being able to go out there and perform his music in front of 80,000 people. Chris got to live 2 dreams.
Yeah.
In one segment, right? He's out there living his rock and roll fantasy. And he's in the ring with one of the best performers probably that has stepped into the ring in forever and is able to go out there and have a fantastic match. How do you not think that that's just freaking awesome?
It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And the finish here, I mean, Chris really put Will Ospreay over big. Will hit everything on him, and I thought that if you're trying to endorse Will Ospreay as a player, even though he's not someone who's signed to your company, you're going to use him in the future in mega matches. And I think Will Ospreay showed the world appropriately in his home territory that he is truly one of the most gifted wrestlers of this generation. Do you have any thoughts on Will?
I've already expressed him. I just think he's an amazing performer. And the other thing I liked about this is again, it's not a storyline, it's an angle. And there's a difference, folks. There's a freaking difference between a storyline and an angle. Figure it out. But while it wasn't a storyline, the fact that Jericho showed up at an independent event, confronted Ospreay to kind of shoot an angle to lead into this, I thought that was smart. And I've often thought that even when I was producing pay-per-views, too much emphasis was on getting the matches out early, promoting the individual matches early. Because generally pay-per-views are a last-minute decision. Number one, because there's no rush. It's not like a ticket. You're not going to run out of. You can buy a pay-per-view anytime. 2 minutes before the pay-per-view. There's no urgency. There's no fear of loss associated with buying a pay-per-view, right? So most of the time, people are making those decisions to buy a pay-per-view. I would venture to guess. This is a guess. Not done the research, but pretty much last minute. But you got to give them a reason, something at that last minute. If you can do something at that last minute to really compel them and motivate them. And I thought this was an excellent strategic decision to have Jericho show up and shoot at an angle and leads to the pay-per-view. I thought that was smart, which got my interest in the match even before I saw it. But after seeing it, I was like, oh, man, that got a 9 from me. Just, again, I'm a bit of a Jericho fan. Partly because I've worked with him, partly because he's been around for so long and he's done such amazing stuff. But at this stage of his career, to be able to go out there and perform at that level with one of the best in the world says all you need to know about Chris Jericho.
Yeah. And again, when I say he's keeping out, I mean, relatively speaking here, best athlete in pro wrestling and Chris Jericho at 52. I thought it was really, really impressive. You know, you mentioned
Ospreay's timing, his precision. His offense is very much a combination offense. You know, you watch a good boxer, it's all about combinations. Nobody's looking there to land. Even Mike Tyson, you know, as powerful of a puncher as he was, it was about combinations. And, you know, he'd work over your body and get you to drop your hands and take your head off. And Ospreay has this, it's almost like a chain offense. He's got such, and he does it with such amazingly incredible precision. And also go back and watch that. I'm going to back up just a little bit for a second. But you go back and watch Ospreay. When that match was over, that muckerfather, yep, I said it. I'm wearing the T-shirt. You can order it online. That muckerfather wasn't even breathing hard. I got winded watching it.
Yeah.
He wasn't even breathing hard.
That's what he does, man.
I was so impressed with that. Amazing.
What he does. It's just, when you're an elite performer like that, it's just another day at the office. And I interviewed Swerve Strickland earlier in the week, and he told me with Ospreay that he's the most explosive performer he's ever been in the ring with. And I think explosive is a perfect way to sum up how he processes each sequence in the ring. He's really fantastic. You know, you were talking about buys at the last second and stuff like that. They did something on the pre-show here, and I know you didn't see the pre-show, but when I saw it, I was like, oh, that would be such an Eric Bischoff move if he had the same luxury to do something like this. They showed Mercedes Moné, the former Sasha Banks, in the crowd, just taking in the event. And even though she wasn't booked on this show, we know that she's injured right now. I thought that was an interesting little way to build some intrigue. Hey, you know, buy this pay-per-view right now, and you never know, maybe Mercedes Moné could show up. Any thoughts on utilizing a promotion like that?
Yeah, if I would have done that back in the day, it would have been considered false advertising by Dave Meltzer.
Right there you go. You see Mercedes Moné.
Uh-oh. Yeah, no, I mean, I did see her. They cut to her a couple times, or at least one time during the course of the pay-per-view, and I thought, okay, that's cool. I get it. Planting the seed. All for it. Not criticizing it, see where it goes. But I was thinking, God, if I'm Mercedes Moné and I'm looking at what's going on, do I really want to be a part of that?
We will see. We got
for the money, of course she will, because it's all about business.
Yeah, man.
It's all about business.
Absolutely.
And I don't know her at all. I don't know if I've ever even exchanged words with her, even though I worked in WWE briefly while she was there, but I never worked with her directly. But I get the sense that she's really, really smart.
Yeah.
When it comes to business. So it's all business.
Billy Gunn and the Acclaimed defeated the House of Black to win the AEW World Trios Championship. The House Rules made this a no-holds-barred.
Shocking. Oh, no holds barred, as if everything else that we've seen leading up to this was, you know, by the book. It's like, this is an example, John, of what I mean about just, you know, okay, he's like the Dave Meltzer Book of the Year, whatever. But if people think this is good booking, then God bless you.
Yeah, I saw no reason for this match to be a no-holds-barred match when you had...
It didn't fucking matter.
Yeah, it really did.
Christ almighty, guys are digging each other's eyeballs out with forks and glass.
It was only utilized in one spot in this match when Julia Hart dragged Aubrey Edwards, the referee, out of the ring as she was about to count 3. And she didn't get ejected for it or anything like that because it was legal in no holds bar. And that was really the only time that stipulation, to my recollection here, was even utilized in that match. So I didn't understand why it needed to be presented as such. But still, feel good moment for Billy Gunn and the Acclaim to pick up the win here. Billy Gunn getting that moment at this stage in his life and his career. That's pretty significant in my opinion.
Still one of the most talented guys in that car.
He looks amazing, doesn't he?
He looks amazing. He works amazing. He looks believable. He's credible. There are no holes in his game. He's a solid practitioner.
He's amazing, and I think he has added a lot to the Acclaimed package and presentation
Agreed.
as well, and that has helped them get to the degree of response that they are getting every single week in and out on television. I thought this was a good match for what it was, but again, didn't need the stipulation really. House of Black maybe teasing a little bit of a babyface turn there at the end where they showed that the Acclaimed earned their respect and handed them the championship. So maybe that's.
I thought that was classy, and I also think the House of Black, their presentation when they came out again, it was a homage to Bray Wyatt, and I respected that, but it was also really well done. It was. It looked up to standard.
Yeah.
It's what you would expect to see on a high quality pay-per-view or a prestigious pay-per-view. So I had no issues. What did I give that one? 7.5. Because I just thought overall it was the presentation, the execution. I wish it wouldn't have been a no holds barred match, but whatever. Still, in my mind, it was really fun to watch.
Yeah, Eric, they say everybody loves the Acclaimed, so I got to ask you, does Eric Bischoff love the Acclaimed?
I love the bars, man. I mean, they came out. Who else came out spitting bars? And they actually sucked earlier in the night.
Oh, it was in oh God, whose entrance was it? It was in someone's entrance. It was
so horseshit. It was just like, why would you do that? Unless you're trying to get heat because you don't know how to do it. Now, if that was the purpose of it, then it was really effective. But Acclaim came out, and it's like, damn, they're good at this stuff.
It was Swerve's entrance for Swerve Strickland, I believe.
Yeah, that sucked. But this one was great. I love their run.
You're a Max Caster guy. I dig that. For sure. The Acclaimed have really improved so much in a year's time, and I think Billy Gunn's been a big part of their improvement. So hey, we'll see what happens with them here as the trios champions. All right, Eric, so excited to talk about this main event with you. MJF defeated Adam Cole by pinfall to retain the AEW World Championship. I personally felt that this was some of the most fun I've had watching a main event in a long time. They hit so many different story beats and callbacks to this feud that if you've been paying attention for the last 3 months that these two have been together, you were rewarded for paying attention. I thought they tore it up, and it proved that MJF is once again one of the greatest talents of his generation, and I don't think that's hyperbole. What were your thoughts on this main event here, Eric, as AEW went all in and keeping the title on MJF?
So impressed. I think MJF, we're still not seeing the best of MJF yet. That's still to come. He's still a child as far as his career. He's got so much more to give and to grow and to learn and to experience along the way. That's only going to make him better every time he comes through the curtain. He's already, in my opinion, the most valuable guy on that roster. Without a hesitation, he's the most valuable piece of talent on that. I don't say piece of talent. He's the most valuable person in that company, in my opinion, and is only going to get more valuable. I think Adam Cole did a great job. I want to know who laid this match out. More importantly, or specifically, I want to know who came up with this finish? I suspect I know. I'm not going to drop a name, but I'm really curious if this conversation on this podcast creates more conversation in social media, because the finish to this match was so well layered. When I talked earlier about WCW disease, this is an example of the cure for WCW disease. I've often talked about the one thing WCW, even at the height of our success, the one thing we did not do a good job at was coming up with great finishes that provided almost a story within a story. This finish and the drama that ensued and the execution of it made this match stand out so far and above anything else in terms of structure. Again, Ospreay, Jericho, different kind of match, right? But as a story, both backstory leading into the match, as you pointed out, even using the preliminary show as a foundation or a platform to continue it, but the execution of this, everything about it, the conceit of it, like who created this, who laid this out? I want to know. I really freaking want to know, because that person is one of the more valuable people in this company.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
Yeah.
Every other finish I saw was kind of a means to an end. Let's just figure it out. We're going to lay out this match. You're going to do this, and I'm going to do it. You're going to hit your high spot, and I'm going to hit my high spot, and I'm going to get a fork, and you're going to get a meat cleaver, and you're going to get a can opener, and you're going to go under the table, and you're going to fucking, I don't know, maybe a kitchen sink, and then we're going to end the match. Whereas this almost felt like somebody figured out the finish and laid everything else out to fit it. It was so good. It was so well done. I think MJF, I was thinking about this a little bit after watching it, and I know this is not the right parallel to make, but Kurt Angle is one of my favorite performers of all time as a producer, simply because you could say, okay, on Monday, you could say, Kurt, I need you to be a comedy wrestler. You need to go out there and just make fun of yourself and have fun and go out and have a great match. And then on Tuesday, you could say, okay, Kurt, I know we sent you out there and you're like a stand-up comic in your match and we wanted you to be funny, but now I want you to be the most deadly person on the planet. Okay, I'll go do that. And he could go do both equally as well. MJF has that depth. MJF has the ability and the depth of character he was vulnerable here, right? This was a guy that 4, 5, 6 months ago didn't give a shit about anybody. It was all about me. It was all about the money. I don't care about you. I don't care about Tony Khan. I don't care about the fans. I don't care about my mom and dad. Literally, he would say that in social media. He didn't care about anybody. It was all me, 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 me. Now, in this storyline, he's vulnerable. For the first time in his life, he's got a true friend. And it hurt him. This whole thing was hurting him. And Adam Cole did a great job as well. I think he overacted a little bit, to be honest. But, and that's just constructive criticism. I think if he would have dialed his facial expressions and his emotion back about 15%, which is unusual because usually I would encourage people to turn it up. But in Adam's case, I think, especially because the role that he played here, I think he overacted about 10 or 15%. Minor thing. Just a note. But I just thought this whole thing was so good. The finish, the after the finish, the emotion that it created, the execution. Damn. Gave it a 9. Knowing 10's impossible. Nothing's a 10. Gave it a 9. I really, really, really enjoyed it.
I think one of the things that made the Bloodline story so successful in its peak was that within matches, you were getting substantial progression of character. Characters were developing in real time right before your eyes. And you were using story beats and callbacks to help leverage those and propel the characters forward. I think we saw that serviced tremendously in this main event, where MJF, the whole vulnerability thing that you referred to, Eric, has been kind of the backbone of this. Being friends with Adam Cole has made him more vulnerable as a person because Adam Cole's encouraging him to be more vulnerable and open. And in the closing moments of all this whole sequence here, where Adam Cole looks like he's about to turn on MJF, MJF is so angry at himself for being vulnerable. He gives him the tag titles. He's like, hey, man, we still have these. Don't worry. And Adam Cole throws it aside in his frustration. And he's like, I knew it. You were just using me to get to the championship. It wasn't there. Shame on me for being vulnerable. Shame on me for having human emotions and trying to better myself. And then Adam Cole proves, no, we are friends. And it is okay to be a good person.
And that's the twists and the turns and the curves and the valleys and the hills that a good story, and in this case, a great finish, tells. That's the journey. And I was so happy to see that. This is the only match that I saw that in, really, is finish-wise. It was so good. It was so well done. I can't say enough good things about it.
Yeah, obviously the caliber of the action was there. You knew that was going to be the case between these two. Adam Cole really is a special in-ring talent and very well-rounded in that sense. I thought using Roderick Strong here was a really good character bit. And my favorite thing, the double pin, you pay off the double clothesline, which has been built for months with these two. They double pin each other. You think it's ending in a draw, and then they call back to the first championship match between them, where Adam Cole asked for 5 more minutes out of MJF, and MJF said no. But that's when MJF was a jerk. And now, because he's progressed because of Adam Cole, they decide we're going Broadway. We're going all the way here. I just thought that was amazing, Eric, and it really spoke to the attention to detail in the storytelling. And I know that's something that you have harped on so much about AEW. It really paid off here.
Somebody's paying attention. I don't know who. I want to know who, but somebody laid this match out, and whoever that person is their salary should be doubled. They should have their finger on the trigger at all times, because whoever put this together did an amazing job. And I'm not sure. I don't know. I know nothing, but I would guess it's a collaboration. But keep those people together. Listen to those people.
Mm-hmm.
Give them more opportunity, because that kind of finish, that kind of storytelling, that attention to detail will grow the audience beyond just, did you see that guy cut him open with a can opener? That's not going to grow your audience. That's good. It's just not. But anyway, I don't want to be negative. I was glad I watched it. I think Tony and everybody that wrestled should be proud of themselves. I think, again, I live vicariously through every one of them. Every single one of them, to be able to walk out to that kind of energy. The one thing I did notice, though, which is weird, I made a different note. Before I forget, star of the night to me was Nigel McGuinness. Nigel is a breath of freaking fresh air when it comes
a great
to
commentator.
Commentary.
Yeah,
he actually does what a color commentator should do, and he does it really, really well. Hats off to Nigel. The one thing I did notice, though, is, because of the timing, the roof was open. When it was light in the arena, the crowd was like into it, right? Because they're there. Once it started getting dark, they became less involved and less animated and noticeably less vocal. I think part of that is because that crowd, those 80,000 people, showed up ready to freaking party. They came locked and loaded and ready to have fun. And it was so easy in the beginning, and they saw all this crazy, gory, stupid shit. In my opinion, stupid shit. They probably loved it. The extreme violence and the blood and the sticks in the head and the forks and blah, 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 fucking blah. And they all popped for all that stuff. And then they got fatigued. By Sting and Darby, that audience started getting gassed. And that's what when I talked to you last week on Strictly Business, I talked about crowd management. It's an example of crowd management.
Did you think the match was ordered, or the show was ordered well, match-wise?
No, because there's too many gimmick matches in there. There were too many matches. There's too many matches that were so similar.
Yeah.
You can only have so many gimmick matches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get it. It's funny you say that about the crowd, because I felt as the night got darker, the quality of the action and the quality of the show improved. I thought it really started to feel, this is a big deal, this show, as it got darker and the presentation just lit up more. You had that full LED stage. I was like, this really feels like a big show now that the lights have kind of centered in here. But I do agree with you with the crowd. And I think with that open air roof too, a lot of the sound kind of shoots up right through it.
Yep.
So it was interesting in that sense. But from people that I spoke to who were there, everyone seemed to really have a great time. Do you have an overall rating for the event out of 10, what you'd give it?
Yeah, I didn't just sit there with my calculator and average out the individual ratings that I gave the matches, because the crowd and the vibe and the ambiance and all that factors into the overall feeling of the show, right? And it's hard to give that a score. But I think for me personally, look, I spent $50 to watch it. I got up at 3:00 this morning. Took me 4 hours to finally get my hands on it. And I sat and watched it for 4 hours, and I'm glad I did. I think for me, it's about a 7, maybe a 7.5, because of the venue and the scope and the vibe and the ambiance of it all. I think it could have easily been an 8, 8.5, even a 9 if there would have been more thought and going into the matches, better finishes, less gore, blood, violence, just for the sake of doing it, because it's easy to do. It's not hard booking. It's easy. Any 16-year-old could book that kind of show. But all that said, and I know that sounds negative, but I'd say 7, 7.5, which I think is pretty damn good.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And
knowing that a 10 is unattainable.
And they're going to be going back to London next year for AEW All In London. So it seems like this is going to be a yearly tradition here.
A lot of folks are feeling really good about the fact that they ordered All In. But if you want to feel good every single day, then do what I do. And Mrs. B, is start your day out with AG1. 1 scoop. That's all it takes. 1 scoop. Ice cold water. Mix it. Drink it. Tastes delicious. Goes down easy. I take mine before I even have my first cup of coffee. And if you know me, anything I take before my first cup of coffee has got to be important. It's important to me because there's over 75 nutrients in AG1 that affect your gut health. Now, why is your gut health important, you may ask? Think of it like this. I'm a layman. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nutritionist, but I think of my gut kind of like a carburetor. No matter how good the fuel is, if the carburetor isn't operating properly, you're not getting the most out of your nutrition. And that's why I like AG1. Clarity, focus, energy, better sleep, all that comes with better nutrition, and better nutrition starts with your gut. I first heard about AG1 long before they started sponsoring 83 Weeks. I heard about it listening to Joe Rogan, and Joe Rogan is a guy, if you listen to him, you know that he spends a lot of time studying, learning, optimizing nutrition and his health. And I was curious, and so was Mrs. B. We tried it. We fell in love with it, like I said, long before they started sponsoring 83 Weeks. So do what I do, man. It's a comprehensive solution. If that's what you need to supplement your routine, then try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5, not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5 free AG1 travel packs. I take them with me everywhere I go with your first purchase. Go to drinkag1.com/83 weeks. What did I just say? I said that's drinkag1.com/83 weeks. Check it out, and you can thank me later.
Let's get a few fan questions and we'll wrap things up here, Eric. We got John B from Tennessee, Jeb, saying, surprised that AEW didn't bring in a major free agent signing like Edge, Goldberg, the Usos. I'm kind of glad they didn't, because it gave the talent on the card a chance to deliver. I thought by bringing in a free agent signing, it would diminish their current lineup. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I absolutely 100% guarantee if there's been anything we've seen enough of over the last year or two, it's the big surprise announcement. And I don't think this show needed it. This show was the crowd showed up hot and ready to party. I think it would have been a missed opportunity to actually introduce a surprise new signing on the show. So agree 100%.
Tommy wants to know, and there's a question that would fit in with Strictly Business as well. Given the amount of licensed music AW uses or has used, what's the process of acquiring the rights? What determines the price? Is it only for a certain period of time before you have to redo it, or is it indefinite?
Every deal is different. I don't think there's a one size fits all answer to that question. I doubt there's any rights in perpetuity that don't come along with a 8-figure check. But I don't know. I haven't licensed music in forever, so my opinion means squat.
We got Lee Kahn. He says, I agreed with Eric that having MJF and Adam Cole on the pre-show was a bit daft, but having been in the stadium, I have to admit I was wrong and they pulled it off really well. Do you agree?
I do. As I said to you during the show, I thought it was stupid when I heard it. I couldn't understand why. Hey, when you're wrong, you're wrong. Again, I don't think it added any value, but it didn't hurt either. And maybe helped incrementally for those who were really into that story, which I imagine a lot of people are, because it's a well-done story. So maybe there was added value there that I didn't recognize, but certainly didn't do any harm.
Ryback's only fan. What would have been your main event for All In?
The one we saw.
I agree.
Absolutely. There's
agree.
no question about it.
Yeah, I'm total agreement with you there on this one. Andrew Oswiak, he's got a point here, and I'm curious if you agree with it. He says, would like to see a full circle story with the Guns, with Billy rejoining up with his sons Cole and Austin for a sustained tag heel run. What do you think about that, Eric?
On the surface, I like the idea because there's believability and reality and backstory, a lot of it behind it. So you've got a platform, you've got enough clay there automatically to shape whatever you want to shape. And I think it's a great opportunity.
Got two more, and then we'll wrap things up here on 83 Weeks. Brad Stan from Ad Free Shows asked, did the back-to-back All In and All Out pay-per-views provide an opportunity for some type of buy one, get one promotion?
Maybe. I don't know. I'm not following that kind of business strategy too closely. Could, might, possible.
That show is coming up this coming weekend from Chicago.
Does anybody care about this show, by the way? Is there any buzz on that?
Well, most of the card wasn't even announced until yesterday, and still it's only about half announced, and it's this weekend. So,
and I'm sure they've already sold out most of the tickets.
Yep. And that's at the United Center. So it's going to be a big show for them. And we'll wrap with this one. Adam, now that All In 2 has been announced for next year, does Eric believe WWE will run a stadium in the UK in the near future? Does Eric believe the Stadium Stampede works better on TV for those at home than it does there live because there's so much going on? So two questions there. Stadium Stampede, and do you believe WWE will run a stadium in the UK?
Well, a Stadium Stampede, part of that question is kind of obvious branding. So yeah. Do I think WWE is going to change their strategy based on what just went down this past weekend in Wembley? No. I think WWE has probably have their plans in place, at least in terms of venues and all that, 12 to 24 months in advance. And I doubt that they're going to do any reconstructive surgery to their strategy based on this event.
And WWE has been very successful with its PLE lineup in the past couple of years, needless to say. They did. I mean, they ran the Clash at the Castle show just last year, and that was a tremendous success for them in that sense. But I suspect, Eric, we'll be seeing a lot more stadium shows out of WWE in general here now that.
Well, look what they're doing. I mean, they're selling out everything.
Yeah.
Over what was it, $21.6 million plus in less than 24 hours for an event that's 6 months away. So yeah, they're going to do more.
Yeah, absolutely, Eric. I really enjoyed getting a chance to hop on with you here on this edition of 83 Weeks. If you enjoyed it, I encourage you to check out Strictly Business with Eric and I. That drops every single week right here on the 83 Weeks feed.
Yeah, because we're going to talk about all the bullshit backstage. We're going to.
We didn't even get into any of that on this podcast.
Brother.
but get ready because that's coming this week. And
Strap in.
on Strictly Business.
Put in your mouthpiece, put on some headgear, and get ready to go for a ride.
83weeks.com, adfreeshows.com is where you're going to get early access to that. And of course, if you'd like to join our team here on 83 Weeks in Strictly Business, head on over to advertisewitheric.com. Get your business out in front of thousands and thousands of listeners and viewers every single week. That's advertisewitheric.com. Eric, is there anything else you'd like to add here on this edition of 83 Weeks?
No, brother, but thank you for stepping in for Mr. Thompson. I know he has got his hands full today. It is rocking and rolling as always, but we'll be back next week, I'm sure. But again, John, it was last minute, man. I texted you and you texted me back in 3 minutes, and we were on 2 minutes after that. So I appreciate you being able to step in like that.
I appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate everyone listening to this edition of 83 Weeks with Eric Bischoff. We'll see you next week.
Hey guys, need to call a quick timeout here. Wanted to tell your listeners what I've been telling my listeners over at OU didn't know for a while now about all the cool things happening over at adsfreeshows.com.
On the latest edition of The False Finish, Zach Gowen talks about reaching the top of the pro wrestling world against incredible physical odds before issues with immaturity got in his way.
It's not a talent issue, it's a maturity issue. We want to see you continue to wrestle, try new characters, become a heel, try new things, find a groove. The door is open, just mature a little bit. But it was almost fatherly, the way he sat me down and explained to me exactly why I was being released. And I'll always remember that, and I'll always thank Jim Ross every time I see him for that.
As Dog and Casio finished up their latest Ask Dog Anything, they kept the party going for Ad-Free Shows members, answering more questions on a bonus overrun.
We were the main event. Me and Brian Christopher were the main event. Doug was in a up there match. Jamie Dundee was in a tag title match, I'm sure. And we just stopped and started playing pool and drinking. Like, that was what we did. We pulled through the median and turned around and just called from a payphone and said, yeah, our car can't make it.
That's just a small taste of what we got waiting for you. With 4 levels to choose from, see for yourself why Ads-Free Shows is the best value in wrestling today. Sign up now at adsfreeshows.com.
Get ready for the ultimate wrestling fan experience from the comfort of your own home. Starrcast VI is streaming exclusively on Premier Streaming Network. Witness wrestling legends and current AEW stars take the stage for 3 days of engaging and captivating discussions, including AEW Unrestricted Live with special guest Tony Khan. But wait, there's more. Order the full weekend bundle and score 2 months of Premier Plus absolutely free. Unlock access to over 70 epic shows from Starrcast 1 through 5. As well as the upcoming Wrestling Showcase event on September 9th. Plus, you get access to the Premier Plus library with thousands of hours featuring your favorite promotions and stars. All of this for just $49.99. Don't let this opportunity slip away. Tune in to Starrcast VI exclusively on Premier Streaming Network and order now at StarrcastOnPremiere.com.